Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chain.
Hey, I'm Adam Chain.
And I'm Shoshana Chain, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 258, Eating You Alive with Sheanne and Dan Moskaluk.
In today's episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talked to Sheanne and Dan Moskaluk about how they healed using a whole food, plant-based diet. Sheanne lost 130 pounds, and Dan won a battle with stage 4 kidney cancer, which is both amazing. They are two healthy, energetic souls, and they're really dedicating their lives to making the world happier and healthier. They do this by discussing the benefits of a plant-based, whole food, vegan diet, as well as through animal rights activism. Their story hits us hard, and there were tears that were actually shed that you weren't able to see or hear on the audio recording. But before I went plant-based, I had a ton of weight to lose, even 16 months after giving birth, and gaining weight could have become a big issue for me.
And had I not found the tumor on my kidney and changed my lifestyle, it's very possible that my story could have been just like Dan's. It's almost like finding a plant-based diet kept us from going down the path that Sheanne and Dan did. But the success is that we're all here to share these stories. And today, you're going to hear about the amazing documentary Eating You Alive, in which Sheanne and Dan were both featured in. And they're also really excited about their upcoming trip back to their hometown of Ottawa, which is July the 14th, that they're going to a major rally called Nation Rising, and it's taking place on Parliament Hill. And if you're in the Ottawa area, you should make it a point to get there, and you'll hear more about it in today's episode. The cool thing about Instagram is that it really highlights the quote, "A picture is worth 1,000 words." We've been having a great time with Instagram and with Instagram stories, bringing plant-based living to life for all of you. There's so much we can cover on the Plant Trainers Podcast, but we also want to help inspire you and give you more tools for everyday living. Whether we're posting about our own meals, our workouts, general healthy lifestyle tips, food shops, blogs, time-saving tips, or the occasional goofy thing our plant-powered kids did, we put it up there for you. So be sure to follow Plant Trainers on Instagram and say hi, interact with us. We love getting to know you there. And now for a moment of gratitude.
I'm really grateful for the personal connections that I've made through this podcast, through Facebook and through Instagram. People are chatting with me and talking, and we're sharing real life experiences, and there's just nothing better than that.
I'm grateful for being outside in the hot weather and just having the opportunity to drink a nice cold glass of water. I love that feeling. It's so refreshing. And I know it's funny, but our body's made of a lot of water, so drinking that water really makes me feel a lot better.
It's funny because when you said cold, you looked at me because I will never keep water in the fridge, and I think that's your hint for me to put it in the fridge.
Well, maybe it's time. Well, that's my moment of gratitude for today.
You could put it in the fridge too, you know.
Oh.
Sheanne and Dan Moskaluk, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers Podcast today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. We're happy to be here.
We're glad that you're happy. Do you have a moment of gratitude that you'd like to share with us and the listeners? Dan, do you want to go first?
Yes, and I think this is, it comes time and time again. The one thing that we're so grateful for with our efforts that we're doing is time and time again, we have perfect strangers that come up to us and will tap us on the shoulder and essentially just start off with saying, thank you so much for what you guys are doing. You have no idea what it's meant for us. They talk about health changes and turning their lives around health wise. And these incidences, then it's from usually they'll lead in as to saying, well, I saw a newspaper article about you two. I saw the film Eating You Alive that you were in, or I heard about the two of you. And sometimes it's about obesity and sometimes about cancer, sometimes about other health-related illnesses. But it's amazing as well as that these things seem to happen at the times that we need them as much as well too, because it's when either we're questioning what we're doing, why we're doing it, if we're making a difference in people's lives,
feeling overwhelmed,
And it happened just again this Sunday or Saturday at the Kelowna Vegan Festival, where this perfect stranger came up, tapped me on the shoulder and said, Dan Moskaluk and Sheanne, I just want to thank you guys for what you're doing. So and it re-energizes us and reaffirms that what we're doing is making a difference. We are changing people's lives. And it's a pretty special feeling.
Grateful for those amazing moments that happen. And of course, we're grateful to be here. I mean, I really assumed I would be a widow by now. So the fact that we're on a podcast with some people from Toronto seems surreal when our lives looked like they were going in a very different direction a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's so amazing when our guests come on and have a moment of gratitude that Adam and I really connect with from within our heart. We start every show by saying what our moment of gratitude is, whether we have a guest on or not. And it's so similar because we've been there where we're putting in, 15, 16, 17, almost 20 hours a week just into the podcast alone. And sometimes, I've said this before, it's very isolating on this side of the mic. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, 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 Instagram stories, Facebook Messenger, emails from listeners start to come in with the thank yous and the moments of inspiration, and it really does help.
Yeah, it's whenever you think you're not reaching people or you're ready to say, you know what, maybe we need to take a step back from what we're doing because it's not really going as far as we want it to go. Yeah. We get those people commenting and we get those emails, and it is regenerating and rejuvenating, and it does keep us going, and that's why we do it, to help people learn and share stories and hopefully help them get better at whatever they're trying to get better at.
That's exactly how we feel. It's amazing.
The other aspect of it is, too, being in law enforcement now for 33 years, I've kind of accustomed to, victims of crime or in situations that are quite severe and getting those thank yous. And I must say, when it comes to health-related assistance and these interventions that we're assisting in, again, that has been tremendously rewarding and just as gratifying and just a wonderful thing to have happen. Again, like I said, at those moments where we're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, I don't think there's any greater joy than helping other people. I just actually did a post about this. Is everybody's always having these wellness days and taking, self-love and all that kind of thing. I was like, forget that. Get out of your own head and help others, because that's what makes you deeply, truly happy.
Yeah, it heals yourself as you're healing others. You heal yourself too.
Yeah.
It happens together simultaneously.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So you started to talk about your health journey a little bit, Dan, but I believe that your induction into the plant-based world started with you, Sheanne. Is that right?
True. Absolutely.
So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. Well, let's see. It was in the fall of 2010. The short story is my son came home from joining a gym and was told that he would need to have protein powders if he was ever going to gain muscle. So off to the health food store I went to buy one of those great big tubs of whey powder. And this woman working there said, "Whoa, who are you buying this for?" And I said, "My son." And she said, "You need to do some research before you feed that to your kids." So I went home, stumbled across The Perils of Dairy with John McDougall, and that just led me down a wormhole. I just started reading, and it fascinated me. And the more I read, I finally read the China study, and that was it. I thought, we're not doing this anymore. We have to change the way we eat. So April 1st, 2011, April Fool's Day, I cleaned up the entire kitchen. All animal products were gone. And I started feeding my family when they were at home that way. I mean, they were still out and about eating whatever the heck they wanted. I couldn't control that. And so over the next 2 years, I lost 133 pounds, down from nearly 300 pounds. And I really did it for health. That was my motivation, and the weight loss was an amazing side effect. I have to say that I am so grateful. I thought that weight loss was the only thing that a whole food plant-based lifestyle had to offer me, and that was just the beginning. That was actually setting me up for the really big fight that was right around the corner. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful that I had it in place, because, it was a bit of work to reteach yourself how to grocery shop and cook and all of that kind of thing.
Before you continue, did you say that did you go whole food plant-based, like oil-free, or did you just go plant-based?
I went plant-based at first. I mean, we were kind of more vegan-y, plant-based, and then went further. I think the more you do it, the more you do it.
So did the weight start to come off before you dropped the oil?
Oh my gosh. I think I dropped the oil fairly early in just because I'd done so much reading.
You're doing McDougall, yeah.
Yeah, John McDougall, I'd read all of his books. So the oil was something that was gone really early. It was more the transitional meats and more of the like vegan food. And then as we've moved along, we've gotten more and more whole food, plant-based, stricter with what we're eating. But, back to what I was saying before is that I was so grateful that I had all of this in place before a health crisis happened. It's kind of why wait till the 11th hour to turn that ship around, hopefully turn that ship around. Do it now. Do it now while you can. Sadly, a lot of people need that real scare, that real pull the rug right out from under you to actually make changes in their lives, which is, I guess, just human nature. Human nature.
Yeah, and that's one of the messages that we're trying to pass on. I mean, that's what happened to me. I mean, before, luckily, they found the things they found for me, and I was able to make those changes. And now everybody that we talk to, we try to encourage them to make it happen before it's too late, before you lose a loved one, before you're gone and you can't be with your family, before your wife has no father to raise their children. I mean, these are all the things that I was going through several years ago when we made that change as well. So that's a message that we're working hard to share with people, that they need to open up their eyes, their hearts, their minds to this message so that they can make the change before they really need to.
It's so true. And I think that, because of our age group, peer group, whatever, we attract a lot of people that are, all of those bad habits that have come home to roost in your late 40s, early 50s. And what we've really tried to focus on now is even children. It's like, why are you feeding your kids that way? You're setting them up for disease later in life. So the evolution of everything is, we want to talk to people that are certainly dealing with chronic disease right here and now, but it's like, change the way you're feeding your kids so that they're not going through this. And you guys have littler kids, so you probably really...
We want to give them a better chance at growing up more healthfully than we did because, even our generation in late 30s, early 40s, we have friends who are pre-diabetic, diabetic, having cancer. So many more people are passing away than we ever expected. Yeah. And we don't want our children to have to grow up with that. Like to spend your adult years when you're supposed to be taking care of other people, your children, your family, to spend those years trying to reverse your own diseases, figure out why you have hormone imbalances, figure out why you have obesity, why you're growing tumors for no reason, why you're 37 years old and you have heart disease. And people will say, oh, but we're pretty healthy and we're athletic and we eat a lot of grass fed this and free range that. And you have to find them where they are at the same time. You can't get into a big fist fight in the middle of the grocery store or the coffee shop or wherever you are over it. Maybe you can. Maybe you can. But, you have to kind of sprinkle the information. These are, for the people who aren't listening to this podcast or other kinds of information out there, you need to sprinkle it. You can't just shock them because you'll turn them away completely.
We refer to, instead of having confrontational even terminology, we don't call them, non-vegans. We call them pre-vegans because once they start educating themselves and learning.
If you can just get people to listen to the information, I think the rest just flows easily. And you never know how long it will take for that seed to grow. Some people, I can turn them in a night at a party. They wake up the next morning and they're plant-based.
We're doing this. Yeah.
And other people, it's taken, 3-4 years of kind of gently massaging them towards that direction before they fully adopt it.
Yeah.
But I have to say that I think I've lost 133 pounds. Dan's had this amazing health recovery that he'll talk about. I think we have a really good platform for people they look at us and they're like, yeah, I guess I need to do this, right? It's like, which one do you want to argue with? Because both of us have had such profound changes in our lives. So It's difficult when you're dealing with people, but we also feel that it's like comes down to not on our watch. We're not gonna not say something to people and then find out they've been diagnosed with diabetes, heart disease, or cancer, when we maybe by having said something, it could have changed things. Even, maybe not, but it's always worth a try.
I think too that we're seeing more and more in the mainstream. We're hearing, even the differentiation between vegan and plant-based is starting to that determination, and that awareness is out there more and more. And we've got the inception of different products and availability of the foods in restaurants and grocery stores. So the conversation seems to be happening a lot easier and more often, with even people themselves being curious about, well, I'm hearing about this more and more. What is that about it? But I think, again, leading by example is the one of the biggest ways and the easiest ways, because, and especially somebody who does adopt it, and everybody gets the same questions, it's like, as the person transitions into it, this lifestyle, they start getting the comments of, something's going on, I'm looking at you and I can't really nail it down or put my finger on, but something's happening here. You're looking healthier, you've lost some weight, you've got this glow to your skin. Women, the hair, vegan hair just looks, plant-based eaters, their hair is tremendous. Yeah. So all these things kind of tie in, and then the next thing that person feels good about themselves, and they're like, yeah, this is happening, this is working, right. And they carry on.
Yeah. Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and how you healed?
Yeah. So again, typical mid-40s, adult male. We start hearing those terminologies: pre-diabetic, metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, 20, 30 pounds overweight, and we adopted this way of eating in about 2010, and then for about that 2 years. I wasn't 100% plant-based. Outside the home, I still scarfed it down poutine and burgers and pizza when I was out of the house. But as soon as I started even almost eliminating all animal proteins, the weight loss happened, sinus issues disappeared, allergy symptoms went away, and better sleep. And as a shift worker, the sleep pattern is one thing that you really notice when it does change and gets better. So all those things were happening, and then we thought, well, this is great. I'm nearing retirement, and it's a wonderful thing. We thought this was the rest of our lives. And then that 1 week in November 2013, after putting off abdominal pain, that Saturday after splitting firewood, I said, I've had enough. The pain in my left side abdomen was unbearable. I thought kidney stone, kidney infection. We got to go to the hospital. Off we went to the hospital. They did a scan that very night, and typical thing, ushered into a waiting room. Physician with the scan results clutched in a hand, and within 2 sentences of walking in, he said, Dan, it's not a kidney stone, it's not a kidney infection. Your right kidney is one massive tumor. It's cancer, and it's metastasized. And then we were off down this path of figuring out what to do next. And stage 4 kidney cancer is terminal. It's a 5% survival rate for men and 8% survival rate for women. There's no effective treatment for it. So the best chances that they said, well, you're very, very healthy, so we know you'll do well with surgery. We do have to remove the kidney. You remove the kidney,
vena cava.
The vena cava. So so what had happened was the tumor had grown out of the kidney and metastasized into the vena cava, which is your truncal vein, which attaches all your organs, and it was growing towards my heart and lungs, and it had metastasized into the lymph node systems. The surgery happened. The surgery was that Christmas Eve. In Vancouver, the 4 of us traveled down. At that time, our children were, late teens, early 20s. And that Christmas Eve was surgery night. And I was thinking, wondering if that was going to be my last Christmas. Went through the surgery. They removed the kidney, pulled the tumor out of the vena cava, cleaned out some lymph nodes. And then it was surgery recovery. And again, they were very astounded as to even how well I healed from surgery itself, which was a very, very tremendous thing. I lost about 35 pounds. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep for a couple of weeks. It's interesting because, again, we thought, well, nutrition, caloric intake. What was the solution? Was roasted nuts bedside. I just scarfed down roasted nuts.
Raw roasted nuts.
Raw roasted nuts, no oil.
That I did.
Yeah. And that got me through it. weight gain started to happen. And then again, too, as most cancer patients know, is that if you're healthy enough, they use the term wait and watch. And if you're healthy enough, they can wait and watch to see what your cancer is doing. And again, we were permitted to do that because I was so healthy. Again, that cancer would have grown for about 15 to 20 years. It wasn't something just overnight. But they did tell us, they were honest, they said, we would be naive to think that this cancer wouldn't spread or grow. So the only solution was, or possible solution, was a trial study drug. By that March, I'd recovered from the cancer, from the surgery. And they said, you're well enough and we can get you onto a trial study of immune therapy drugs. Now, the treatment was to be 4 treatments every 3 weeks. So we were traveling to Vancouver every 3 weeks for this combination of these immune therapy drugs. That the intention is to bump up your immune system to get past the blocks that the cancer puts up. But when we filled out all the consent form, every 3 weeks for 4 sessions. Once I got through the 4 sessions, it was supposed to be a maintenance treatment every 2 weeks for the rest of my life, or however long my body could endure it. Side effects we were told about, the consent forms we filled out, and it was interesting because in bold letters in a couple of sentences that, they explained the purpose of the trial study drug is not to be a personal benefit to the candidate. It is essentially just to see if the drug is safe to use.
Human lab rat.
Lab rat to see, is this suitable? What's the dosage and what is the safety of it?
And the consent package was probably a half an inch thick.
Yeah.
Did you have a lawyer look at that?
No, I think it's funny because
at that point, we were so fragile and with a 5%
survival
rate and no effective, chemo and radiation are not effective with kidney cancer, oddly enough, that it was kind of, it was a crapshoot, it was just kind of.
So were you 100% plant-based at this point, or were you still in that eat-out kind of situation? We're taking a short break to let you know that this episode of the Plant Trainers podcast is brought to you by Four Sigmatic Foods. We love ourselves a good cup of matcha tea every now and then, but the problem is that the coffee shops offer a low-grade matcha that contains way too much sugar. That's why we're so impressed with Four Sigmatic's mushroom matcha with lion's mane.
While matcha contains caffeine, it also contains L-theanine, a relaxing amino acid, resulting in a feeling of balanced energy for your whole body. There aren't many drinks out there that can make you feel energetic and calm at the same time. We love the quality of this matcha product, but the truth is, we're super impressed with the quality of all Four Sigmatic's many coffees, elixirs, and blends, and the integrity of the brand. We spent the last few years moving our way through the list of their amazing products. There's always a product that catches our eye and is perfect to support us in whatever health or fitness endeavor we're going through at the time.
Go to foursigmatic.com/planttrainers, foursigmatic.com/planttrainers, PLANTTRAINERS, and search for the items that call to you, and be sure to put in the discount code PLANTTRAINERS for 15% off your order. And now back to the show.
No, so November 9th, 2013, at the Penticton Regional Hospital Emergency Ward is the moment that I committed 100% to a whole food plant-based diet that night. And why? Because I didn't want to die. And armed with the knowledge that Sheanne had gained and the information, I wanted to stack the odds in my favor. I didn't want to die, and I wanted to do anything and everything that I could to increase my chances of surviving this. And that was it. So from the diagnosis was.
And I had been reading everything I could get my hands on regarding all aspects of a whole food plant-based lifestyle. But as soon as he was diagnosed, it took probably about 2 weeks for us to even recover, to get our equilibrium back. But then I just started to read anything linking nutrition and cancer. And there's 100 years of data showing the link between cancer and animal products. And that shocked me, made me really angry. But it also, I think, the more I read, the more I became hopeful. I always equate it to, we have lots of rattlesnakes on our property. And when we first moved here, I was terrified of them. But I did as much research as I could so I'd know what they were like. And I think that was the same for cancer. The more we learned about cancer, the more we understood it, the more we realized that yeah, it's terrifying, but there are certain mechanisms that happen, and we felt that a whole food plant-based lifestyle was extremely hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that you would have found that information 10 years before, that it would have had the same effect and you would have been able to embrace it the way that you did? Moment of truth.
I think that
without the internet.
Well, first, without access to the internet. Second, I think, I had been struggling with obesity since my first pregnancy and my second pregnancy. I lost a bit of weight doing, everything, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, you name it, gained it back. So I think that there was definitely, I was at the right place at the right time and was open to the information at that moment. And that's why I say I was so grateful that I had that knowledge. I was armed with that knowledge when Dan's cancer came along. So I truly believe that had I not found that, had I not learned about it, and if Dan would have still had the cancer because it was growing for all those years, I don't think he would have survived. We would have still been eating meat and dairy and eggs and cheese and all of the things that would have been feeding his cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think he would have done very well.
No. And then getting into the protocols and so on, and we're given some degree of hope with the trial study, but again, what the purpose of the trial study wasn't very encouraging to hear. But again, they were so amazed as to how well I recovered from surgery. And then when we went into the trial study again, I only made it to the third treatment when I did have one of the severe side effects that we were warned about. Woke up one night shortly after the third treatment and had a fever, which is a big red flag for cancer diagnoses. Off to the hospital we went to have blood tests run to see what was going on. And they made a determination that the drugs had, in fact, attacked my liver. Now, when we were explaining what was, how they looked at these drugs, they said it was like opening the tiger's cage and not knowing where it might attack. Essentially, it bumps up your immune system, and the risk is that it could attack itself and hit healthy organs, and that, in fact, is what it did.
And then at that time, you withdrew from the study.
Well, we didn't withdraw. We were kicked off it, or we were dismissed because, again, it doesn't look very good to kill your trial study patients. And
so how many people went into this trial study?
We don't know specifically. There was a group in Vancouver. We never met any other ones. We didn't know how many people. There were a few places around North America that they were doing these little pockets of this particular drug trial.
Phase 1, yeah.
So, and to this day, we still get packages from them with new side effects that they've found that we have to sign off saying that we're aware that this is still a possibility, I guess.
So you have no clue how many other candidates are walking around advocating for plants and animals and lifestyle and with the lust that you are?
No, not those that were involved in the study itself. Interestingly enough, our trial study case nurse, it's interesting because as we were going through the treatments and the meetings and stuff, we wanted noted on our files that we were whole food plant-based and elimination animal protein.
Every time we were there.
And they refused to make that notation in the file, and we confirmed years later when looking at our files that they never made the mention. But interestingly enough, at one time we gave one of our information cards to our trial nurse, and just last year she wrote us a lengthy email, and she's transitioned to plant-based after herself doing all the research and is advocating for it with other patients. So it's been tremendous.
So it wasn't there for us, but now anybody else is being told about this. So
do they think that you're still here because of the trial medications?
Well, again, we'll never know for sure what and if I did have a response. We do know that it nearly killed me. That liver attack, my liver was producing 25 times the normal liver enzymes. They normally dismiss a person when it's creating 5 times the levels. So it was a near fatal side effect that night.
And it was only 3 treatments when it was supposed to be 4 of the double, and then every 2 weeks for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And that would have been driving to Vancouver, which is about a 5-6 hour drive from our house, staying in a hotel. It was, at the cancer clinic. You were not
disruptive to life. Yeah. For you, for your children. Yeah.
Yep.
you're into the system. That's what we hear a lot about with people with cancer treatments. So
you hand your life over. You abdicate your health and your life to the system. For that reason alone, we're so grateful that there's a change. Mm-hmm. So after the side effect, and then punted off of the treatment, the scans are happening almost every 6 weeks. And then, as I was going along, we saw improvement, even, how healthy I was when I went into it. I didn't look like a stage 4 cancer, patient ever. I was healthy, good blood counts, good weight, good blood pressure, and so on, other than some of the minor side effects of the treatment initially. But as the scans went along, we had reduction. I had 3 lymph nodes that were still affected, that they were watching. In short order, I saw a reduction in the lymph nodes. By that fall of 2014, we were down to 1 lymph node only. And then they started using the term in remission. Fast forward to that winter spring, or the spring, I should say, of 2015. They said, we're closing your file. Your cancer is now radiologically undetectable, and that you're essentially cancer free. If you were to walk into a cancer clinic that day, that they would have just turned me around. Amazing. So within just under a year, I was cancer free when the diagnosis was months to 2 years, and it was supposed to be a miserable 2 years.
Yeah. That's congratulations to you guys for, we don't know if it's the plant-based or the trial study or a combination of, or if you would have been able to survive the trial study without the plant-based, but I mean, we know the science.
Yeah, well, there's no question. There's no question that the nutrition had a huge impact. And here's the big question, because the research has been around for years and years and years, 100 a year, you said, right? And we know that animal proteins are linked to cancer. We know that it affects us metabolically. It's the cause of diabetes and high blood pressure and so many chronic illnesses out there today. And it's not like this is a big secret. So why are not more people finding this whole food plant-based diet and using it to become healthier? Why is it that the government is, maybe I shouldn't blame the government, but why is the media, all these big dollar people backing the animal proteins when they're making society sicker rather than healthier? I don't know if I should have said it that way, but I did.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I think it's it comes down to politics and food policy. I think, as I said in Eating You Alive, there's no money in sending people home to eat their vegetables and drink their water, and it really comes down to money.
The systems in place.
Our mainstream media is controlled by dairy, meat, and
for advertisers,
pharmaceutical advertising, and the dollars for advertising dollars are what drives our media. Our governments. I think there's a huge applause for Health Canada for these proposals to the Canada Food Guide. And that's fabulous. So we've got that on one side. And then we've got Agriculture Canada. The minister there is, trying to rally and support all of the ag farmers and is really vicious about the proposed changes. Mm. So we have infighting within our own government. And yet the United Nations is the one that is urging world governments to adopt a plant-based food pyramids and food guides, because we know that it's unsustainable as far as, our environmental concerns. We're going to bankrupt our economies of countries. We simply will not be able to afford health care. I think the big people, the United Nations, the forward thinking people see this coming down the pike, but we're so distracted in our society with entertainment and just the daily life of raising children and working a job, and who has the time? I was very fortunate to have the time to do all of this research, and people really resist change, and they love to hear good news about their bad habits. And so it's really hard to break in to get this information out.
I think that first of all, if anybody wants to know more about what is happening in terms of the Canada's Food Guide and how they are becoming a little bit more progressive, hopefully, then they can listen back, and we will link to it in the show notes at planttrainers.com, to the interview that we had with Anna Pippis from Animal Justice, where we talked about the work that's being done there. But also, I think that we do need to take a breath, and we do need to recognize everybody who is making a change, who hasn't, had the tumor that you guys almost share the same tumor, who hasn't had the tumor on the kidney, who hasn't had to lose 100 pounds, who hasn't had PTSD or diabetes or what have you. There are tons of people out there, and we need to recognize them, who are making a change. It's not enough, but it's a start, because I know a lot of the work that I've been doing most recently has been working with young families who haven't had a major catastrophe. I don't even want to say yet, but who have not had a major catastrophe, period. And they want to know, are they feeding their children properly? How do we keep our children from being picky? How do I know that they're getting everything on their plate that they need throughout the meal or day or week, that they're getting all the vitamins and minerals? And just by working with these families, I know that there are people who are making changes before it's too late, who are actually learning from all of our stories and listening to the podcasts and watching all of these documentaries and Facebook and everything.
I think you just hit it on the nail. It's like listening to the podcasts, and it's like people like you that are getting this information out, and because I think this is a grassroots movement. It's coming from the bottom up, not from, a little bit from the top.
Is that a pun? A pun, grassroots.
That's right.
And that's another thing we talk about gratitude. What's really interesting, like the other day we did another formatted talk presentation, was Disease Proof Your Kids. And it was so encouraging to see, what we would refer to as really, really newbies, or those that have no, much information about it. Again, at the Kelowna Veg Fest, again, too, the demographics of the age group that was there listening to the lectures. So that, again, is encouraging to see that there's adoption of this. People are interested. People want to know. People are seeing their older generations, their parents and grandparents, uncles and aunts with chronic illnesses. And I think the information is there for them more. Yeah. And I think, too, when you look at, our systems, our dietary systems in Canada have been set up by the food industry for decades. Our pharmaceutical industry is the one that has built our healthcare system around the physicians. And physicians were not and have not been educated in nutrition, accurately. But that, again, is changing as well. And we have physicians, even in Canada, that are looking at lifestyle medicine. For example, Sheanne went down to the International Plant-Based Nutrition Conference last year with over 1,000 physicians. With what was the Canadian group? It was about 30.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were about 30, 40 people from Canada, from all across Canada, down at this conference. And worldwide, there was people from all over the world. Yeah. So, and thank goodness for the democratization of information through the internet. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge. I think the change is coming, and I think it's starting to snowball.
It's exponential.
That's what we, I think you do live in a little bit of an echo chamber, because we talk to you and people like you, and you think, oh, well, we don't need to talk about this. I think that's it. Our work is done. Everyone is plant-based. And then you step outside and you're like, oh, wait.
You step outside right onto the doorstep of a Burger King.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, let's get to work.
I want to be mindful of our listeners' time, but there is a little bit that I wanted to ask you about before we close up. We know that you're involved with Eating You Alive. We talked about it a little bit throughout the show and in our introduction, but maybe you could let people know, because it's not on Netflix yet. Not everybody has seen it yet. So just let people know what makes this documentary special and why it's important that they see it and share it.
Yeah, Eating You Alive, first of all, is the quality of the film itself. The production company and director and producers, they put together a beautiful film. And it's layered in a way that is so nice, in the sense that there's three essentially layers to it. You've got the rock stars of plant-based movement, the Caldwell Esselstyn and Campbell and McDougall, Gregor, Neil Barnhart. They're all in it. And they're, they explain everything quite well, as they always do. And then second to that, you've got this group of physicians that were interviewed from across the United States. These are regular physicians, all different specialties, that looked outside of their normal traditional trainings, and started to get to know about this whole food, plant-based nutrition and lifestyle medicine, adopted it for their own health, as well as incorporated it into their practices for their patients, and saw the results. And then thirdly, that's involved in the film is, a dozen or so of these health success stories: diabetes, lupus, heart disease, obesity, cancer, that are just tremendous success stories. So a beautifully made movie, again, that does provide people and provides this solution and this answer to this epidemic.
And it's nice because it has a little how-to section as well, how to grocery shop and how to cook, and which is kind of nice because I think a lot of times you tell people all of the information and they're like, okay, well, how do I do this now? How do I actually implement it?
Yeah. So it's a tremendous movie. And then when we were looking at the first question everybody has is, well, where and how and when can I see it? Just off the phone again today with the producers that just in April there was a U.S. release in 600 theaters. And then for a special event, the DVD download availability again is set to resume within days from now. So again, eatingyoualive.com at their website, we should have some the availability of the film in a variety of ways as well. The screening events, hosted events. People can go to the site and host an event actually for the screening. We participated in those ourselves as well too. Yeah. So the film, people are asking a lot about it. And again, we just want to see it out there.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to link to that in our show notes at planttrainers.com so people can go check out that documentary. And before we do close out, though, I know you have a very important date at Parliament Hill coming up, and I want you to explain to people what's going to be going on July 14th at that rally.
Yeah, this is tremendous. The rally is, and the group is called Nation Rising. This is the first event. The speakers will be Salish Rowe from Cowspiracy, James Aspey, the Australian activist, Dr. David Jenkins, who is the inceptor of the glycemic index, and Indian Rock Vegans. So there's a march towards Parliament Hill, and then a rally event throughout the afternoon. And essentially, we are bringing a message to our federal government. We are putting them on notice that we are seeking some changes. And the first one is we want to see a stop in the subsidies or to animal agriculture, seeing that it's a $1 billion subsidy system where $7 to $8 billion annually go to animal agriculture. And it's wrong that our tax dollars are used to fund food that makes us sick, destroys our planet, and hurts the animal. The second platform is to make healthy food available, to create new subsidies to ensure healthy organic plant-based foods that are affordable for everyone, in particular for Indigenous and low-income communities. And thirdly, again, because it's not a vegans versus farmers, we want to see some assistance for farmers to transition to plant-based farming, providing financial assistance to farmers wishing to make that transition to plant-based farming, and set up necessary committees to provide guidance during that transition. I think, again, we can akin it to the tobacco industry when that was the determinations were made with respect to its health implications, that we need to look at this and there needs to be a solution. So July 14th, we're coming back to Ottawa for the first time since our wedding in the 80s and participating in this wonderful rally on Parliament Hill. And we're thrilled about that, to be bringing this message to Ottawa.
It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be incredible, an incredible rally, amazing stuff that you guys are doing. We really appreciate all the hard work that you're doing and wish you lots of luck and success at that rally. And we're going to get this show up before that so people are hearing this now. And if they're in the Ottawa area, hopefully they will be able to get down to Ottawa to Parliament Hill to be able to contribute and be a part of that rally alongside with you. If there was one big message that you wanted to share with everybody listening today, what would it be?
Well, I think plant-based for your health, for the planet, for the animals. It's crucial for our survival. We're looking, at predictions that our oceans will be fishless by 2048. I think we should all be terrified. But to use that fear to make changes for the better. The human race is amazing in their adaptations and how we've done over our evolution. And this is just a turning point where we can take the best of humanity and make these changes. And that's what we're hoping for. And we thank people like you who are out there doing these podcasts and talking about this. I think the more of us that are talking about it and communicating it, the better off we'll be.
Yeah. And again, too, it's not just about us. We've got the animals. You know, we're slaughtering needlessly, the count of 70 billion animals annually, the unspeakable suffering. That has to stop.
Sheanne and Dan, if people want to reach out to connect with you directly, where would be the best place for them to go?
Well, we're Indian Rock Vegans, which is actually the neighborhood we live in. We just threw it out there. We didn't know what to call ourselves, and we live in Indian Rock, so it was Indian Rock Vegans. So we're Indian Rock Vegans on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Instagram is, of course, lots of food pictures and things like that. Facebook, it's more of an info hub. We put out a lot of information. I always say to people, if you read an eighth of what we put out, you'll be plant-based.
Yeah,
so,
we also do quite a bit of outreach, and the email again is indianrockvegans@gmail.com. We have outreach happening with people all around the world, and again, that gratitude of being able to help someone out or just plant a seed has just been so tremendous.
And just to support each other in this journey.
Yeah.
It's really amazing how it all started with personal health and getting you guys healthier, and now it's turned into a much bigger picture. And I find that everyone that gets into this, that's the way it goes. It ends up being about the planet, it ends up being about the animals, and it no longer ends up being about yourself because you've already done that healing, and now you're out there trying to help other people, and we're on the same page with you. So we want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with us on the Plant Trainers podcast, and for everything you guys are doing out there in the world. Keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any other podcast listening platforms. We appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it ensures other people will find us too. Thanks to our patrons. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference. Connect and follow us on Instagram and Twitter @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at www.planttrainers.com for awesome plant-based recipes and a list of our services. Email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so we can answer them on our upcoming Facebook Lives. We hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time, and have a healthy day.